Welcome to Moments in History channel. Ever heard the name Dracula? Of course you have. The pale, fanged count lurking in the shadows of a Gothic castle. But what if I told you the real Dracula was far more terrifying than any vampire? Forget the fiction, because today we're diving into the blood-soaked history of the man who inspired the legend. Vlad the Impaler. This isn't a story about monsters of the night. It's a story about the monsters of history, and the man who became one to fight them. Our story begins in 15th century Wallachia, a region in modern-day Romania, sandwiched between two colossal powers, the Kingdom of Hungary and the expanding Ottoman Empire. This was a land of constant conflict, where survival meant being ruthless. Into this world, in 1431, a prince was born, Vlad III. His father, Vlad II, was a member of a prestigious knightly group called the Order of the Dragon. This order, founded by the Holy Roman Emperor, was dedicated to one thing: defending Christian Europe from the Ottoman advance. In Romanian, Dracul means the dragon, so Vlad II was known as Vlad Dracul. And his son, Vlad Dracula, meaning son of the dragon. The name that would echo through centuries had nothing to do with vampires, at first. Vlad's childhood was anything but princely. To secure a fragile peace with the Ottoman Sultan, his father sent him and his younger brother, Radu, to the Ottoman court as political hostages. Imagine being a young boy, torn from your home and family, living in the heart of your enemy's empire. This wasn't a guest stay, it was a gilded cage. While his brother Radu adapted, becoming a friend to the future Sultan Mehmed II, Vlad grew resentful. He watched, he learned, and a deep-seated hatred for the Ottomans took root. He studied their military tactics, their politics, their strengths and their weaknesses. These years didn't just shape him, they forged him into a weapon. When Vlad finally returned to Wallachia to claim his throne, he found a kingdom in chaos. The nobility, known as the boyars, were corrupt and treacherous. They had a long history of assassinating princes who didn't serve their interests, including Vlad's own father and older brother. Vlad knew that to rule, he couldn't just be a prince, he had to be a terror. He needed to make an example of those who defied him, and he chose a method of execution so horrific it would define his legacy. He chose impalement. It was a slow, agonizing death, designed not just to kill but to horrify. It was a psychological weapon. Vlad famously invited hundreds of the treacherous boyars to a grand feast. After they had eaten and drank, he asked them how many princes they had lived through. When they boasted of their long service under numerous rulers, confirming their disloyalty, Vlad had them all arrested. The older ones were impaled on the spot, right outside his court. The younger, able-bodied ones were marched to the ruins of a fortress and forced to rebuild it with their bare hands. Many died from exhaustion. The message was clear and brutal. Loyalty would be rewarded, but betrayal would meet an unimaginable end. This wasn't just punishment. It was state-sponsored terror. But was he just a bloodthirsty tyrant? To many Romanians, then and now, he was something else entirely, a national hero. Vlad was a staunch defender of Wallachian independence. He refused to pay the traditional tribute to the Ottoman Sultan, an act of open defiance. When the Sultan sent envoys to demand payment, legend says they refused to remove their turbans in Vlad's presence, citing religious custom. Vlad, viewing this as a sign of disrespect, praised their devotion and offered to help strengthen their custom. He had their turbans nailed to their heads. This provocation led to all-out war. In 1462, Sultan Mehmed II, the same man who had conquered Constantinople, led a massive army, one of the largest of its time, to crush the defiant prince of Wallachia. Outnumbered and outgunned, Vlad couldn't win a conventional battle. So, he turned the entire country into a death trap. He waged a brutal guerrilla war, poisoning wells, burning villages, and launching relentless hit-and-run attacks. He turned the land his enemies sought to conquer into a desolate wasteland. His most legendary act came during this campaign, the infamous night attack. Under the cover of darkness, Vlad and a small, elite force of his men disguised themselves as Ottoman soldiers and infiltrated the Sultan's own camp. Their goal was audacious: to assassinate the Sultan himself. They swept through the camp, causing chaos and slaughter, cutting down surprised soldiers in their tents. While they didn't manage to kill Mehmed, the psychological impact was immense. The Ottoman army was thrown into a state of panic and paranoia, unsure who to trust. But Vlad saved his most horrifying spectacle for last. As Mehmed's army advanced toward the Wallachian capital, they came across a clearing. It wasn't an ambush site, it was something far worse. Stretching for miles was a forest of the impaled. On thousands of stakes, Vlad had mounted the bodies of captured Ottoman soldiers and Turkish sympathizers, an estimated 20,000 of them left to rot in the sun. The sight was so ghastly, so profoundly disturbing, that even the battle-hardened Sultan and his army were sickened. Morale collapsed. Mehmed, the conqueror of empires, reportedly looked at the scene and admitted that he could not conquer a man who did such things. He turned his army around and retreated. Vlad had won, not with swords and shields, but with pure, unadulterated terror. So how did this brutal warlord, this national hero, become the world's most famous vampire? The story takes a turn centuries later, in 19th century Ireland. An author named Bram Stoker was researching for a new Gothic horror novel. He stumbled upon stories of the cruel prince from Wallachia, whose name, Dracula, and whose reputation for bloodlust seemed perfect for his villain. Stoker blended these historical fragments with European folklore about blood-drinking creatures of the night. He took the name, the homeland in Transylvania, and the stories of his battles with the Turks, and created a new, fictional monster. The historical Vlad, the impaler of his enemies, was transformed into a supernatural predator who drank the blood of his victims. The novel Dracula, published in 1897, was a sensation. It forever fused the name of the Wallachian prince with the image of a vampire. Today, Vlad Dracula's legacy is a paradox. In Romania, he is often remembered as a fierce patriot, a strong ruler who brought order to a chaotic land and stood up to a mighty empire. His brutal methods are seen as a necessary evil in a brutal time. But in the West, thanks to Stoker's novel and a century of movies, his name means only one thing: vampire. The real man has been almost entirely consumed by the myth. He was a product of his violent era, a hostage, a prince, a general, and a tyrant. His story is a chilling reminder that sometimes the truth of history is darker and more complex than any fiction we can imagine. The real Dracula may not have had fangs, but his brand of terror was all too real. Thanks for journeying back in time with us. If you found this slice of history as fascinating as we do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Moments in History channel for more deep dives into the past. Let us know in the comments, was Vlad a monster, a hero, or both? We'll see you in the next one.